I I certainly think that what we so there's we're back to how many teams are we? Are we back to 12 teams this year with Cornwall, or is it
No, it's 11.
11? Sorry, we're back to 11 teams with Cornwall um, in League One. So I let
If it's any help, I have them finishing eighth. I have them finishing above Scholars. I have them finishing above West Wales, and I have them finishing above Cornwall.
yeah,
But I
Scholars
don't
have the
necessarily
issue
see them
of
any better than that.
replacing what was a very good coach for that level, for that squad, for that side,
Yeah.
don't they? In Coleman going off to the Broncos, so I do expect maybe a slight drop off from them. West Wales are mired in problems. I mean, at the moment, I'm not confident that they finish the season. West Wales.
It's not. It's the signs are not great.
So I have them finishing. I now have them finishing bottom, even though Cornwall have only just announced what their 10th or 11th signing, so they still can't put out a full side. They're obviously drip feeding them in their signings, and it's very much an unknown quantity, isn't it? Cornwall. There's going to be a lot of rugby
Completely.
union converts, a lot of people who've never played at the semi-pro level before, as well, or a good smattering of people who've never played at the semi-pro level before anyway. Plus all the travel, all the new setup. But you've got to say the coach is someone who you trust. If there's one person who you trust at that organisation, it's the coach.
Exactly. No, I think he'll get the most of what is available to him. But
But
like you, I do worry about the quality of the players he's got
but
at
they'll
his
finish in the
disposal.
bottom three
Yes.
of the table. So I think then it depends for the Midland Hurricanes if they can have upsets against the teams that you expect to sort of be around them at chasing those playoff spots, and I'd be looking at Hunslet, North Wales, Oldham, maybe I think Rochdale have maybe got a little bit stronger than last year, maybe, and Keighley should be much of a muchness to last year. Doncaster similar, and Swinton are my favourites for the competition. So I think we can take Swinton, Doncaster, and Keighley out of any conversation of Midlands causing other than maybe a random home game upset against. They're not going to be competing with those three sides. So it's if they can rise to the occasion enough in games against people like North Wales and Hunslet and Oldham.
Yeah. This is the thing. Like obviously North Wales were the team of the. They were my team of League One last year because they got those unexpected results and they had a really good mid-season run.
And they were
So
exciting. They were in so many high-scoring games. It must have been fun to watch down at Stadium Zip World. Exhilarating stuff, just like the Ziplines.
so yeah, I mean, you kind of for Midlands, you're looking kind of to have in 2022 the season that North Wales had in 21. That would be an exceptional achievement, I would say.
Yeah.
Because obviously every League One team's been through a hell of an off season, haven't they, in terms of funding questions and all that kind of stuff. So the fact that if we get all 11 to them playing next year, I think that's some achievement in of itself.
One thing I would note about the Hurricanes that I think is outstanding is
Go on.
their supporters club is called the Storm Chasers.
That's good.
That's
good.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I prefer I prefer my Bears to Hurricanes as a brand. I think it's a stronger brand. But yeah, Storm Chasers. That's smart. I like that. Very good.
If they do finish above eighth, I think that would be classed as a successful season, and that would put them in mid-table, wouldn't it? Seventh, sixth, fifth. That's mid-table. So if they get mid-table, I think Ian should be happy and will be happy.
Yeah.
Right. Next up, we have Sean, a Bruiser664. He said he's a fan of the Sheffield Eagles. He's not. He's a Leeds Rhinos fan. But what happened is Sean now plays for the wheelchair rugby league side for Sheffield Eagles. So he's not talking about the actual Sheffield Eagles when he says, hopefully COVID doesn't disrupt the season too much and we can put on some good matches against some of the other new teams just starting up. And hopefully I get a few more tries this year. Because, of course, Sean scored the first try in the Sheffield Eagles disability wheelchair rugby league team's history. So yeah.
It never harms to remind people of that, does it?
No, or to remind people of how great wheelchair rugby league is, and that it's a growing area of our sport.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So next one, we've got feedback about Whitehaven from Adam. Said, overachieved in 2021. Lost some good players in Walmsley and Jouffre, but made some shrewd signings. We'll do okay. What do you think?
I think that's optimism. I think the players they've lost are quite, like, it wouldn't have been a huge shock if Lachlan Walmsley had signed as like a project player for a Super League club. To me, the way he kind of played last year, he could play wing, fullback, he looked good. And then similarly, Jouffre's been a star performer in the Championship for a number of years. There is, I suppose, still a core of that side that was really good last year. There's still a couple of exciting players. Andrew Bullman on the wing, I think, is a real try scorer. Geronimo Doyle they've brought in from Swinton, haven't they? That's not a bad little sign in there, I don't think either. So yeah, they're not terrible, are they?
Adam's completely right. They did massively overachieve in 2021. Nobody would have called them for the playoffs, and I'm not calling them for the playoffs this year either. I think Whitehaven succeeded where teams like London failed last year. I felt they were kind of there was kind of a correlation between their success and relative failure. So yeah, Whitehaven haven't had a very good year last year. I wouldn't expect them to have the same year. Just through, it felt like it was just outside of what you would expect, just generally, even with players like Walmsley and Jouffre and things like that. So I would be worried about them slightly, and I'd probably have them about where Dewsbury are. I'd have them probably bottom 3 or 4.
Yeah, I agree. They've had a few retirements, haven't they, as well? Jesse Joe Parker has gone, and a few of the experienced players. I don't share your optimism for Whitehaven, Adam, but I love rugby league in Cumbria. I hope all 3 of them stay up.
Even though that's statistically very unlikely.
Yeah. Okay. It's me next, isn't it? Pop the Viking, our friend Paul, who's a Widnes Vikings fan, of course, as the name suggests. He suggests upper table finish, would like to make the playoffs. I think Widnes will make the playoffs. I think they're one of those teams that you were saying have, when you alluded to teams that have improved, I would say Widnes are at the top of that list for me of teams that have improved compared to last year.
Well, it certainly started off very well for them. They were one of the teams I was thinking of. York were the other one I was thinking of, that because York obviously had terrible injury problems last year. And I do think they're better suited to the league this year. I would expect both Widnes and York to be banging on the door for playoffs, definitely. And as I said, Widnes have been very impressive as the season started. So
I think you can tell a tale of like what we sort of said about comparing them with London a little bit as well, about jumping over them. The fact that they beat them quite convincingly in round 1.
Definitely, yeah. I would put a lot more confidence in Widnes making the playoffs rather than London. Neil McEwen also gets in about Widnes, saying, being a Widnes, I expect heartache and misery. Recruitment is depressing, but thank God I'm not a Wigan fan as they've signed utter shite. Smiley face.
We talked about Super League ins and outs last week, so let's just talk about... I can't... I'm struggling to see actually their ins and outs right in front of me, trying to remember some of the players they've signed. But I think the main thing is some of the retentions, isn't it? They've retained
a bit of stability. Yeah,
they've retained quite a lot of players and then made some. They brought back some guys that went to Oldham. Yeah, Oldham got relegated, so that's not exactly a shining story. But they've got good strength in depth, and they've got still, even though things have been scaled back in the youth and all that sort of academy and that sort of stuff, they still had that great crop of young players that came through just at the end of their Super League period. They weren't mature enough yet or good enough yet or what have you to play in Super League, but they are good enough now to be good championship players. People like Owen Farnworth, people like Joe Lyons. They're the kind of guys that jump out to me as players that I think now are ready to be definitely championship players.
Yeah, no, I would expect a decent showing for the Vikings this year.
I've got them in my top 6 anyway. If I was laying out the championship,
I did think
maybe
about
fifth or sixth, but I've got them in the playoffs.
Yeah, I thought about doing a top laying out the every team, but I ran out of time today. So.
I suppose we've got one more, haven't we? Aaron from Workington Town expects relegation. And that plants us right in that relegation conversation then, doesn't it? So we've already kind of alluded to Dewsbury being one of those teams that we sort of think will be down there or thereabouts. Whitehaven being one of those teams that we think will be down there or thereabouts. And Workington are definitely another team that I think will be there or thereabouts.
And I had Barrow in the conversation, and they've gone and made me look very stupid in the first 2 weeks. Now, obviously, that's not to say that it's all over for them and they're safe, but it doesn't half help getting a couple of wins under your belt, does it? So,
Barrow are kind of a club that feel like they always feel like on the edge of making investments into it, and then they kind of get to a certain point and they realise, oh, but we're in Barrow, so how much can we actually do? And that's why they've had some really great championship seasons. Didn't they win it one year? They did, didn't they? And they got to did they beat Widnes in the Northern Rail Cup final one time as well?
You're testing my knowledge. No
around
idea.
About 2010, 2011ish, they were really good. And then they've had relegations, rebuilds. I think Barrow will be. How many teams are there? 14. I think Barrow will finish 10th and be just enough ahead of the other 3 that we've mentioned to never really feel like they're under threat.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, you're right. They have been a bit up and down. So who are your picks for relegation then? If you had to pick two names at this point.
If I had to pick 2 names at this point, I would possibly go with Workington and Dewsbury. I think Workington have got a big uphill task. I feel like they're still broadly a League One squad.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure. Like if you played them against Swinton 10 times this year, I don't think they'd win 10 times. I think it'd probably be 5 each, around about that. I think I think that's where they're at. So I still feel there's a hint of League Oneness to Workington. I would love to be wrong, but that's where I see Workington. I see Whitehaven as being a little bit better, buoyed by the confidence of last year. But like we talked about their squad turnover, I'm worried about the losses they've had, and I just don't see where Dewsbury have got any better from last year.
No, but I feel like I say this every year, and yet they always win just enough. And as I said at the beginning, they've been incredibly consistent in the championship, unlike Whitehavens and Workingtons who've been up and down a bit. They've always managed to just get enough wins. But I too think it might be Dewsbury. It might be Dewsbury's year, as in not a good year. I'm going to go for Dewsbury and Workington as well as my 2.
The one strange thing I feel is, in terms of the dual reg deals that I've seen announced, I've not seen those clubs do any of that sort of business. The clubs that you feel are under threat, which is weird. It's the clubs at the top that have got the deals. So St Helens have got a deal with Lee, and Featherstone have got a deal with Leeds. So that's those 2 clubs tied up with Super League clubs to help basically fill out that lack of squad depth that they've got, because they've put all the money into a few names and stuff. And then Wigan have partnered with Newcastle, who've gone full time this year. They've already done a bit of business there as well. They'd already taken some players on loan up to Newcastle before